Next up to speak about some of the assessments on vulnerable infrastructure in the canyon is Dustin Woodman, the Coconino County Engineering Division Manager.
Thank you. Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Yeah, right? Let me get myself caught up to the presentation here. A little bit of good news. It's another beautiful day in northern Arizona, right? It's nice to be here in Sedona. Before I start, I just want to say thank you to the folks from Red Rock High School, Deborah and Jeremy, for helping us and hosting us here, and Jeremy especially for helping to dim the lights. It's nice so I can actually see some faces now. So, my name is Dustin Woodman. I am the Engineering Division Manager for Coconino County's Public Works Department. And for the last 4 years, my full-time job pretty much has been to work on mitigating the post-fire impacts downstream from the Schultz fire in 2010 on the eastern side of the San Francisco Peaks. That's been no small task. It has required a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of money from a lot of people. Fortunately, we are able to do some things there to help reduce the risks of continued post-fire flooding, especially during the monsoon season, but hopefully also in the event of rain on snow events in the wintertime. That's a very different situation than what we're experiencing and seeing here. As you well know, that flooding occurred off the side of the mountain and across an alluvial fan, essentially reactivated that alluvial fan. And what we're looking at here, as you all well know, is a situation within a canyon with established drainage ways and very steep slopes. And as you heard from the Bear team and others, some highly severely burned areas. The good news is that through our experience with Schultz, we have assembled a really top-notch team of experts, both within our organization and partners, many of which you see up here and throughout the audience, and consultants, experts in the field of hydrology and civil engineering and watershed restoration. And so what we have done over the last couple of weeks is try to take a look at how we might be able to use what we've learned in our Schultz experience to assess the risks to specifically private property and public infrastructure within Oak Creek Canyon and actually down beyond and through the city and into the Yavapai County. We've assembled a great team of folks who have been working over the last couple weeks in the canyon, doing assessments of private properties, and I'm excited to share some of that. Well, actually, I don't know if I'm that excited to share that information with you, but I'm glad to be here to be able to do so. As you heard already, a couple of potential threats really from the post-fire environment in the canyon. One being actual creek level rises from increased runoff. I think Greg with the Bear team mentioned that depending on the size of the watershed and the basin and the severity of the burn area, the hydrologic response in a post-fire environment could be anywhere from 2 to 8 times greater than in a pre-fire environment. So a lot more water coming down off of those hydrophobic soils. So creek level rise is one risk, but perhaps the more immediate risk, as Brian Klonowski mentioned, is the risk of flash flooding and debris flows coming off of very steep slopes in the western part of the canyon, particularly north of Slide Rock State Park and up to Pump House Wash, where the area has been fairly severely burned. Very steep slopes have lost a lot of their vegetation, and the potential for landslides and debris flows and flash flooding is, we believe, significant. So I'm going to spend some time talking more about that risk today. Our assessment team, as I mentioned, is made up of members of Coconino County Public Works Department, also our Community Development Department and Environmental Health, and lots of partner organizations, consulting engineers, including Civil Tech Engineering, Natural Channel Design, both of which are here tonight, and importantly, the Natural Resources Conservation Service, who have been with us since the very early days of the Schultz fire and flooding, and we're one of the first people that we called when we wanted to start looking at assessing the impacts here in Oak Creek Canyon. So they're here as well. And I just want to reiterate a top-notch team of talented individuals dedicated to doing whatever we can to help mitigate risks. The assessment process, up to about a couple of days ago, really, the assessment process was not so much based on hard science, but more on visual inspections, observations, preliminary information coming out from the BEAR team, and past experience in these kinds of efforts. That is continually being updated, and our assessment is continually being refined as new information comes out, the final results from the BEAR team, some information from the USGS on landslide risks, which I'll talk to in just a moment. So we're continuing this assessment process. It's by no means done. We want to continue to refine those results and make sure that we're painting the most accurate picture possible. But the results that we have to share with you tonight are somewhat preliminary, based on not so much a hard scientific analysis. And what we really did was break up the canyon into two areas: one, so that we could maximize the use of our resources, but two, because we really think that, again, the most immediate risks to life, property, public safety, infrastructure is in the northern half of the canyon, from Slide Rock State Park up to Pump House Wash. But we are also assessing the area south of Slide Rock to the city boundary, and also looking at assessments through the city and then down through the county as well, working with the city and with Yavapai County. Before I go on, can I just get a quick show of hands of numbers of residents and property owners within the northern part of Hook Creek Canyon, Slide Rock State Park, up to Pump House? Okay, good. Thank you. I just wanted to kind of get a sense of how many folks were here from that group. One of the first things we did was try to get a handle on how many properties, private properties, and who the property owners were in both of these sections of the canyon. We utilized the Coconino County Assessor's Office to go through the tax rolls and get whatever contact information we could, the most current contact information we could for all the property owners within the canyon, and then really did an assessment of what kinds of properties there are. As everyone knows, there are a number of rental properties, there are a number of second homes, there are a number of undeveloped parcels as well. But there are a significant number of primary residences as well. This is a breakdown. I won't go through the numbers specifically, but and then the next slide is a breakdown of that same information for the area south of Slide Rock to the city boundary. And so we're using this to really help prioritize areas for assessments and prioritize where the highest areas of risk are located. The process is really looking at the burn severity and the topography and how those two things relate to those developed areas downstream, and looking at, again, those risks specifically to life, property, public infrastructure, and utilities, propane tanks, water and wastewater systems, other utilities, etc. Pardon me while I flip the page. Coming out of the assessment process is really the question we're trying to answer is, are there any mitigation measures that we might be able to work with property owners on to help install, work with the NRCS and others to help to fund prior to the monsoon season? Are there viable mitigation options to at least even provide a limited level of mitigation? But importantly, with two additional caveats. One, we're very concerned about creating additional impacts potentially to adjacent properties or downstream properties. And we're also very concerned about the possibility of creating a false sense of security. I think that everyone that you've heard from so far has impressed upon all of us the potential severity of the situation here. And so we're very concerned about proposing a mitigation strategy for a particular structure and having folks feel like that is going to mitigate the issue, because the probability is that it will not mitigate the whole issue, if it's even possible in the first place. So we've been going through and documenting our assessments of all the private properties and trying to build up our list of contact information for property owners and documenting where we think there might be some form of viable mitigation strategy for particular parcels. and in some cases documenting why we believe that there aren't any viable mitigation strategies that we might be able to suggest to property owners. The mitigation options that we've been considering are some of the more traditional ones you may be familiar with, some that we've used with success in the Schultz area, sandbags. I just want to make a side note real quick that we are in the process of producing some sandbags for transport down to Oak Creek Canyon in the near future, and I wanted to recognize the Arizona Conservation Corps crews who are here with us tonight, who are helping us do that work. My family. Also, concrete jersey barriers, K-rails you see on the side of the highway. And we're really thinking out of the box. All of our consulting engineers and everybody on the team is really thinking about, are there any other out-of-the-box things, non-traditional methods, creative options that we have to provide some level of viable mitigation. And then, unfortunately, one of the considerations is also no action, a no action recommendation. The reasons for that are that there are several challenges with providing mitigation in many of these locations, and those include just the potential magnitude of the post-fire flooding and debris flow potential, the proximity of many structures to those steep slopes. In some cases, homes, as you may know, are built into the side of the hill and the steep slopes, and the burn area start immediately in the backyard. Access for people and equipment to be able to get in and install these kinds of measures. And then proximity to the Forest Service boundary, and particularly the wilderness boundary. As I'm sure you know, there are limitations to what can be done, both on National Forest land, but more importantly within wilderness areas. So I have a wonderful, able assistant here, Alan Hayden, who's going to help me start a couple of videos that I want to show you real quickly. I'm not able to do it with the little doohickey here, so I asked him to help out. This is a video that our road maintenance superintendent, Ted Wolf, who is in the audience tonight, an intrepid bushwhacker, took to kind of demonstrate something you probably all have seen, just the severity of the burn area. Previously, we were looking south. That's the western side of the canyon that you can see there. That's the confluence of West Fork. And now he's panning to the right. And you can see as he pans up, it's not very clear. I think he probably took it with his iPhone, which is good technology, but you know, has some limitations. And but you can see the steep slopes, the severity of the burn area, and particularly now again looking south in that area north of Slide Rock State Park. Of course, the creek and the highway and the developed areas, as you all know, lie right within the trees. You can see some rooftops and things through the video. The next video is a view of one of the property assessments that we've done. In fact, the next three videos are, so go ahead, Alan, please. And the purpose of these videos is to just demonstrate some of those challenges to mitigation that I was just speaking to. Walking up to this house, you can see the drainage that is in place for the structure here. You can see the drainage channel for, design built, I assume, for a pre-fire condition. Walking along the side of the house to the backyard, you can start to see that the house is built into the side of the hill, and the slope going up into those steep drainages begins immediately at the back side of the house. And then proceeding a little bit further, you can see that a significant drainage basin discharges essentially right into the backyard of this property. The area of that basin above this home is approximately 80 acres. And so you can get a sense of some of the challenge of designing and implementing a viable mitigation strategy for a structure such as this one. Next video. Similarly, this home, situated at the bottom of, I believe, approximately 10-acre drainage basin. And as the intrepid videographer, who is also in the audience tonight, moves forward, you can see a decorative water feature. It's actually not part of the creek. This is a side drainage. This is a decorative water feature. But the 10-acre drainage comes right into that structure and into a culvert that goes under that water feature. And so, and it's built again right up into the backside of the slopes. So you can see some of the additional challenges there. And
would you recommend flood insurance?
I would. One last video, if you'll bear with me. Thank you, Alan, so much for your help. In this one, you can see we're looking at the fire line, actually, straight through the middle of the video. Panning to the left, you can see the rooftop of a home that's built into the side of the hill. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting to speak into the microphone. So the home constructed into the side of the hill, standing up on the hill at rooftop level. There's the fire line. The burn area begins immediately behind the house. And then as we pan over to the right, you can see the drainage basin that points directly at the developed area. I believe that was a 5 to 10 acre drainage basin above that structure. So those are some of the challenges that we're dealing with in terms of trying to develop viable mitigation strategies that we can then begin to talk with property owners about. Next slides are a couple of preliminary looks at the extents of the drainage basins. Here you can see a number of drainage basins that range in size from 10 to 80 acres, and how the burn severity relates to those drainage basins, the different colors, red being severe, of course, and how those drainage basins essentially empty directly into a developed area on the west side of the creek. For those property owners in these areas, we have these maps out in the lobby, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Here's another look at a drainage basin and how it's situated relative to a developed area and the burn severity. And here's a third one. Again, these are all out in the lobby for those property owners who might be present in these areas. Suggesting, or their analysis shows that there's a 60 to 80% chance of landslides in those drainage basins. Of course, all of this depends on the actual rain events that occur, but we all know what monsoon season is like, unpredictable and big time. And we have an informational sheet out front as well that has links to this information, so you can look at it as well on your own. The next image shows estimated quantities of material that could be involved in debris flows and landslides per basin. And again, in these areas north of Slide Rock State Park, we're looking at anywhere from 1,000 cubic meters to 100,000 cubic meters. So lots and lots of material with a high chance of coming down the side of the canyon. I feel like I should tell a joke, but I don't know any. I wish I had a lighthearted something to interject at this moment. Hey, laser beams. So, what have we identified? A couple of, several risk areas north of Slide Rock are listed here. Pine Flats, Shady Lane, and this is not to suggest that all structures in these areas are at risk. These are areas that we have assessed and where we feel that there are some elevated risks. Pine Flats, Shady Lane, West Fork. Oh, I'm sorry, pardon me. Thank you. Pine Flats, Shady Lane, West Fork, Forest Houses, Juniper Pine, Garlands. Within those areas, we believe that there are about 50 structures and one wastewater system that are at high or moderate risk. In that number, we feel that there is some limited level of viable mitigation that we might be able to work with property owners on for about 35 of those. But there are about 15 where, as in those videos that you saw, mitigation strategy is extremely challenging. So what we've really come to, and what we're looking at, and what we're looking to work with all of the property owners on, is that this is much less of an engineering issue than it is a social issue. And how do we communicate effectively? How do we plan effectively, as opposed to how do we fix it or how do we mitigate it in most cases. In the area from Slide Rock State Park south to the city, there are a couple of areas that are also at elevated risk, not so much from the debris flows coming from the side of the canyon, but potential for elevated creek levels from excessive runoff or from rain on snow events in the winter. And those include the trout farm and the communities around the trout farm. Within those areas, we think that there are about 10 structures at elevated risk, and we do think that there are some limited viable mitigation measures that we can employ at those locations. So what's next? How do we communicate the results of our assessment? Well, it begins tonight with you. We sent out letters to more than 400 property owners, all the property owners from the city boundary to Pump House Wash, inviting them to this meeting, and hopefully many of you received that letter and came. And after this presentation, after the whole presentation, we have breakout sessions in the lobby. Coconino County and our partners will be present to talk with property owners, particularly those north of Slide Rock, to go through more specifics about our assessments, and I'll talk more about that in just a moment. But we are looking to schedule individual meetings with property owners to discuss the results of the assessments and talk through any suggested or possible mitigation measures, if any. It's really important that we continue to collect accurate contact information, so I'm hopeful that everybody signed in this evening and provided your contact information, particularly if you're a property owner within the canyon. We requested that information in the invitation letter to this meeting, and so if you have not yet sent us an email with your contact information, then please do so as soon as possible. We've been using sign-in sheets from the previous public meetings and from contact lists from neighborhood associations to try to help populate our contact information, but we really need your help if you haven't provided it to us to date. And we're working with our IT department to help develop a database so that we can keep all of this information assembled and organized and accessible, and document all of our conversations with you as property owners and how we work together moving forward. We've begun to populate a post-Slide Fire website. That address is also on the informational sheet that's available out in the lobby. And we've started to move some of the more germane materials from the Schultz flood mitigation website to the Slide Fire website, as well as some of the new data that is coming out relative specifically to the Slide Fire. But there you can go now and you can find information about sandbags, and you can find information about protecting water and septic systems. You can find information about flood insurance program. And we're also posting all of our public presentations and links to YouTube videos and things like that, thanks to the good work of our PIO group. And so you can get that link in the lobby. And as I said, our assessment is ongoing as we get new data, as we further analyze the new hydrology data from the Bear Report and the geological information from the USGS. We're continuing to refine our assessments. We're looking to develop a rudimentary risk map. Unfortunately, we don't have very high quality topography, and it's hard to actually acquire high quality topography in a very deeply forested canyon like Oak Creek. But we're using what we have to help both verify verify the assessments that we're doing now and potentially refine them, but also perhaps to point to other areas where there might be elevated risks that we're not currently looking at. And then if and when events occur, we'll continue to do assessments of how those events occur and what has changed. So, in closing, breakout sessions after this presentation, all of the presenters will be present to answer questions, but it's very important that if you're a property owner in Oak Creek Canyon, from Slide Rock State Park to Pump House Wash, that you come over to this end of the lobby and visit with the county team. I will be there to help guide you to the table that best meets the location and risk level of your property, as will Lucinda Andriani, Deputy Public Works Director. So come and see us, and we'll help to guide you to the appropriate folks to speak with about the assessment results. For those folks who own property south of Slide Rock State Park, we'll be getting in touch with you individually in the very near future, but tonight we really want to focus on those areas where we feel that the most immediate risks are. Come and talk to us. Please provide and or verify your contact information. We have lots of informational handouts to give you relative to sandbags and septic systems and all that. And so please come and get the informational sheet that I discussed. And I can't stress enough just how important it is that we have your contact information, not only that so that we can work with you efficiently before the rains come, but so that we can stay in contact with you moving forward. So thank you for your patience. It was a little bit long-winded, but I'll pass it over now to the Sedona Fire District Chief, Chris Kasian.